Let's talk about a man with just an elementary school education. A man whose first big business was literally bombed into rubble, and who still managed to build the largest engine manufacturer on the entire planet. This is the incredible story of Soichiro Honda. I mean, seriously, think about that for a second. It just doesn't add up, right? In a world that's all about fancy degrees and a perfect resume, Honda's story just seems impossible. So how on earth did he pull it off? Well, the secret wasn't about avoiding mistakes. It was about building his entire life and his company around them. He didn't just put up with failure, he treated it like a tool, a necessary ingredient for innovation. He turned total chaos into creation. Let's dig into how he did it. To really get this, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, back to a small village in Japan where a young boy fell in love, not with school books, but with the smell of engine oil and the sound of a motor. Soichiro Honda was basically born into a workshop. His dad was a blacksmith who fixed bikes, so from day one he was surrounded by tools and metal. He had very little formal schooling, but what he did have was way more valuable, this bottomless curiosity. So at just 15, he wasn't thinking about high school. He packed his bags and left for a dusty auto repair shop in Tokyo. Now, being passionate and working hard is one thing, but Honda was about to get a really brutal lesson in the difference between just trying hard and actually being good. This first huge failure, it would define the entire rest of his life. Can you imagine? You pour everything you have into your first big project. You're working so hard, you're literally sleeping on the workshop floor. You finally present it to a huge company like Toyota, and they look at it and say, nope, not good enough. For most of us, that would be it. Game over. But for Honda, this was the real starting line. So what did he do? He didn't just try harder with the same broken approach. He completely changed his game plan. He actually humbled himself, went back to school to learn the engineering principles he was missing. Then he took that new knowledge and just experimented like a madman. See, failure wasn't a dead end for him. It was a roadmap. It showed him exactly what he needed to learn. And you know what? It worked. He got the contract. Okay, so he learned from his first major failure. He landed a huge deal. The path to success is finally clear, right? Nope, not even close. What came next wasn't just another setback, it was complete and total annihilation. Just look at this timeline. It's devastating. During World War II, his factories get bombed. Then, as if that's not enough, a massive earthquake in 1945 wipes out whatever was left. He has nothing. But in the ruins of post-war Japan, with fuel being so scarce, he has this simple, almost obvious, brilliant idea. Let's find some leftover generator engines and strap them to bicycles. Out of total destruction, the seed of an empire was planted. And this moment right here, this is where you see his true genius. His greatest asset was never the factory or the equipment, it was his mind. He saw a deep, fundamental human need. People just needed to get around. And he engineered a brilliant, simple solution from the literal scraps of war. This was never about building a cool machine, it was about solving a real problem for real people.
Going from a makeshift bike engine to a global icon, that kind of jump doesn't happen by accident. It took two key things, the perfect partner and the absolute perfect product.
Soichiro Honda was a genius engineer for sure, but he was smart enough to know what he wasn't good at. So he partnered with Taiko Fujisawa, who was a master of business and marketing. You can think of it like this. Honda was the heart, the creative force behind the innovations. Fujisawa was the brain, the guy who handled the money and strategy to take those innovations to the whole world. This partnership was the real engine of the company.
And this was their masterpiece, the Super Cub. It wasn't built for tough guy bikers in leather jackets. It was built for everybody. The student, the delivery guy, the mom doing her shopping. It was so easy to ride, nearly impossible to break, and super cheap to run. It was basically mobility for the masses, thanks in large part to a new semi-automatic clutch that meant anybody could ride it without being an expert. But how do you sell this little bike to America, a country that's obsessed with huge, loud Harleys? You do it with one of the most brilliant advertising slogans in history. It didn't sell a motorcycle, it sold a lifestyle.
This campaign didn't just sell a few bikes, it created an entirely new market out of thin air. It took the motorcycle away from the image of rebel gangs and put it into the hands of your friendly neighbors, completely changing American culture in the process. It was an absolute marketing masterstroke.
So we've seen Honda beat personal failure, total destruction, and massive challenges in the market. Now it's time to actually name the philosophy that drove him through all of it.
This quote right here is the key to understanding everything about Soichiro Honda. For him, success wasn't even really the goal. It was just the tiny little tip of the iceberg, the visible proof of a massive, hidden process of trying, failing, and learning over and over again.
And look, this wasn't just some nice quote they put on a poster. This was the literal operating system for the entire company. Every single engineer was taught that mistakes weren't something you hide. They were something you analyze, you study, you learn from. Failure wasn't failure. It was data. It was progress.
And what's the result when you embrace 99% failure? How about over 100 million Super Cubs sold? That makes it the most produced motor vehicle in all of human history. That is what a culture of productive failure can build.
So in the end, this relentless commitment to learning from your mistakes, to seeing every single setback as a lesson in disguise, that's what allowed a blacksmith's son with almost no formal education to build a global industrial giant.
So Honda's story really teaches us that our biggest breakthroughs are often born directly from our worst failures. Which kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the setback in your life right now that might just be the roadmap to your next great opportunity?